everyone, this is Saman Fatima, and we're back on another episode on Off the Record with me, Saman, on ITSP Magazine. And this gives me again a great pleasure of finding amazing guests across the country who have done like amazing degree programs. And this time we're again heading on to the West Coast side to talk about more about University of California. And we have Ridhima here. And before we deep dive into the podcast and the set of questions we have to ask her about her experience through the program, we really wanted to welcome you as part of the podcast. Thank you for taking out time to sit and talk with us about your experience.
Oh, thank you for having me here today. I am really happy to be here and totally looking forward to our conversation today.
That's great. So, without any full stops here, let's just start up with our first question, and where we want you to talk about your introduction, who you are, where you come from, how long have you been in the country, and what semester you came in for, like what year you came in, and what degree did you pursue from what college. So, go ahead, Ridhima.
Yeah, absolutely. So hello everyone. I am Ridhima Raina. I currently reside in Los Angeles, California, and I come with a pretty long, extensive work experience. So I did my engineering degree in India in information technology. And then I worked for 7 years in the tech industry. So I worked with a company called Cvent, which was a B2B SaaS company for event management software. And with them, I worked in a couple of different roles. So I joined them as an application support engineer, did a little bit of project management, data analytics, and finally product management. At the end, when I was in product, I spent a little bit of time there. I realized that this is what I really wanted to do, and this is where I wanted to grow. And so the next step for me was like, okay, how do I grow in product management? I had a lot of technical education. My background was an engineering degree, worked with tech teams a lot, but I wanted to get the business side of it. And so the next obvious step for me was to get an MBA. So I came here to the US in 2021, which was right after COVID, got my degree, which is my full-time MBA, a 2-year program, did it from UC Irvine, which is in Southern California. And yeah, I graduated last year and I've been 1 year, it's been a year since I've been working full time here. So it's been a great experience so far. Um, my degree, we didn't have any specific specialization because I know I get asked that a lot. We didn't have a specialization in the MBA. We had a smaller version of that called immersions. So I did an immersion in digital transformation and in entrepreneurship, but there was no official specialization. You could customize your degree on the basis of what you wanted to do, what courses you took, and how you participated outside the class in different clubs and activities.
That's great. And seems like a flex degree program where you're open to take any sort of courses together as part of the program, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 2-year degree program, the way it's divided, the first year you have some of your mandatory courses that you have to take, which is, and they're basic courses to an MBA, which is like your finance, it's accounting, it's your business analytics. So those are marketing. Those are like really core courses to the MBA. And then beyond that, you have the flexibility of picking and choosing. You could do a class in public policy, you could do something in ventures, you could do something in there was a class I took on game theory. So you can like customize and like take up things based on what you want to do and based on things that you really want to explore. So, and I guess most MBA degrees are like that now.
Yeah. Earlier this year, I also took like a session with BBWIC community where we had a product manager talk about all these things. And then, we get the mindset of a product management side as well, how things are taken up, how we have the requirements on plate, and how the solutions have to be advised. So that was a fun part. Looked easy, but I'm pretty sure it is not to, actually devise all those requirements and have the relevant solution ready for the customers or clients. So I guess we'll have a lot to talk about here. So, with that being said, I know like product management has become the next niche field when we talk about set of fields. And I've seen like really amazing people doing great work in the management side and having like such degrees in hand as well, which comes into use when you're actually sitting at an organization and talking about things. So, when we go back in time in 2021, when you were actually planning and you were all set that you want to go into product management, and obviously the next step is to have the masters, so you would have had options of universities as well, with UC being one. So were there any more universities on the plate at that time, and what stood out for this particular curriculum that you went forward with it?
Yeah, so I was already in product management. For me, it was I wanted to grow in that field. And like you said, that's 100% correct that at that point, product really started taking off. So a lot of people who were being hired or recruited into product management back then, they all had advanced degrees. And for me, that was like, okay, apart from learning the business side of it, if I really wanted to stand out, when you're competing and it's a level playing field with so many other people who have advanced degrees, that's also where I felt like I needed to get an MBA to be able to move ahead if I wanted to grow faster in this role. So I wasn't pivoting careers. I was in tech, in product, and I was like, I want to grow in this, which was also a major factor for me choosing UC Irvine. I had applied to a bunch of different universities, and there were the top three that I was contemplating between was UC Irvine, there was one in Texas, and there was one in Maryland. For me, out of all three of these, the one UC Irvine, of course, stood out because of the fact that it was in California. And I was like heavily told that if you want to go to tech, what else are you thinking about? Like, of course, California is the place to be. You have to be there. So that was a very big factor for me. The second factor was the scholarship amount. I think that's a very important factor that people should look at when you're looking at different universities and trying to compare them. Um, I also looked at past alumni. There were some people I could connect with because it was funny because one of my alumni was actually from my school, and we were like classmates when we were back in school. So it was like, oh, small world. But I spoke to a lot of alumni, and I saw sort of looked at their success stories. What are they doing now? And is it similar to what I really want to do, what I want to achieve at the end of this program? And I could see that. And then last was I spoke to the admission. I think this makes a very big difference. Like when you talk to the admissions committee and you reach out to more alumni, the more I spoke to the admissions committee, they had really given us a lot of like each one of us a lot of attention. We had student ambassadors reach out to us individually. We had I remember someone on the admissions committee. I had so many one-on-one calls with him, just trying to understand the fee structure. What does a scholarship look like? How can I offset that fees? What do different opportunities on campus look like? Um, what does a study abroad program look like? Like things like those. And they would really, really spend a lot of time. And I think that is something that really stood out to me, not just the admissions committee, but the alumni also. Like a lot of this individual attention stood out to me a lot more than the that I was getting from the other universities. So for me, then I was like, that makes it clearer that I wanted to be at
Yeah,
UC. Right?
I agree. And I remember my time as well, like I've done like tons and tons of calls. Like I was always on the Zoom invite for the college advisor, always going back with some issues like, what about this? What about this? How can I just cut short this amount? What are the options that being like an international student I have on plate? And then obviously, I don't know about your college and your time, but I've heard like a lot of people talking about here that they do a lot of like universities have now started doing a lot of webinars for international students
Yeah.
at their correct time zones, and they're trying to lure them more about the curriculum, the university, and they're trying to outspread themselves, just going beyond the local students as well and going beyond like international students as well. So that has become like a good thing these days. And I guess with California and with tech, that makes total sense, skipping Texas and Maryland over it, because I've had like a couple of guests before who talk about like tech was the first factor choosing California, but the other was like closer to beaches and all of those perks. I was like, yeah, that works. We can't count on those things being part of Texas or other states to be closer to those places. So makes sense totally to be closer to the tech and obviously to the beaches and other portions as well.
I would really agree with the part where, universities are really putting in a lot of effort. Now, UC Irvine, in fact, for their full-time MBA, they went to India this time. They did like a couple of cities in India, did this whole tour which was a part of, I think, a bigger, I would say like a bigger event that basically hosts a lot of universities, but like a bunch of these universities get together and try to promote a lot of their programs. And actually they went to India this time. Their admissions committee went to India to do it this time. So yeah, there is a lot of focus and definitely a lot of there's a lot of anxiety for international students. How do I make it
Yeah.
through the visa? Will I make it on time? We had those questions. Will I make it on time for the
Yeah.
orientation or not? Stuff like
I
that.
never
So
made it to my orientation because I was
really,
running that late for my visa and other things, and everything was so cut to cut that I had to skip it totally and attend it virtually. And
oh
that's like all in history, but I skipped my first class as well because the process took so much time that I had, that much leverage from the college that okay, I could skip it because this is a genuine reason that my passport has to come back and then I have to fly. So all that has happened, and now I have seen like colleges have become more like comfortable and flexible with all those terms when it comes to international students and hosting all these webinars. So I think it's really good to, go through the website, see if there are certain
yeah,
tours being organized in your country and, if you can be part of it and ask live questions because my college also does that India tour every year.
mm.
So they cover like the major metropolitan cities and they go there and take personal questions. So that comes in handy for you to know more closely about the university and maybe the department as well if you have them on the tour. So
Yeah,
that's
I
really
wish
good.
at that back then, I wish I
Same
had
here.
attended more of these things. I would have spoken to more of these people at webinars and gotten to know universities better. Uh, but I would say a step before, like before the application process, trying to do all of that. I spoke to a lot of these people once I had my offer, so when I was closer to getting an offer. But I wish I would have done that like earlier in the process. I think it's super helpful and really, you really get to know stuff at the university and you can like sort of compare each one of them.
I agree. Like the video calls wouldn't do much, thing when you catch up in person. But I am happy that I'm glad that the universities are doing all these things now every year and taking it as a
Yeah.
priority. And that is really helping a lot of people who are coming now to our
Yeah.
universities. So okay. So Ridhima, obviously you talked a brief about the scholarship part, but before we head on to that part, we wanted to just briefly touch point on the application process that you took. Like, we want to quickly skim through. I know there are some usual things being asked, like SOPs or LORs or the scores, but was there anything else that you see as well asked for in terms of like an essay or a video interview or anything, or it was just the usual SOP, LORs, and the exam scores?
Oh, I had applied to a bunch of universities. I don't specifically remember if I think there must have been there was like a video there was a video interview for sure. I don't specifically remember if there was something else. Excuse me.
No worries. But yeah, I know because 2021 is that time when, we were just after COVID and a lot of universities had waived off on the test scores. So I was just meaning to ask if they've added something else at that time. And obviously, maybe not, a requirement as of now, but at your time, what was it?
Um, yeah, I think there must have been a video interview, but I do remember that for at that point I had applied to a bunch of different universities. I had also done like you do the regular essays. Some of them are like you fill out a form, some of them you can just submit the essay on their portal. Some of them you have to like there's also a video essay, like you said, like you have to there's a topic, you talk about it, you record yourself and you submit it, and then there's a video interview. So there are like multiple steps to it. I definitely remember doing a couple of video essays for some of the universities where there were questions and you had to record yourself and sort of turn it in. So I definitely remember that being a part of the process. So uh, I would definitely ask people to be prepared for your essay questions, your video interview, and then, of course, your video essays as well. I think there's like a separate component, which a lot of universities do now, especially because it's for internationals, everything's done virtually. So a lot of universities do kind of emphasize on it.
I agree. I gave a video interview as well. So apart from the usual scores and SOP and LORs, like I submitted a video interview as well. I don't know if that helps a lot with your entire set of application, but for me it does, because that's one place where you have to put yourself out.
Yeah.
That's your creativity, where you have to talk about those questions which are already given to you, and I guess they're all different sets of questions to everyone to talk about it. And I don't know how do they judge it, but maybe that is somewhere you're out there to talk about yourself and how you will add up to the entire university setup. So
Yeah, and I definitely think it's also a really great way. So the video essay is the part of the your initial essays, your initial application round before you actually get to the video interview. And I think it's a great way to like put yourself out there because your written essays don't really reflect who you are as a person, your personality. And I think that video essays are a great way to sort of stand out, put yourself out there, put your personality out there, and that really helps. Especially for a degree like an MBA, like it really helps who you are, how you conduct yourself, and how you present yourself out there. And yeah, that I think that that is a very important part. And I personally feel like it should be a part of more application processes, because you get that opportunity to do that, and then sort of make your way to the video interview round. So definitely, I think it's something that should be included though.
perfect. I guess it's best to give it out there that people should check it once more for the next year or for the upcoming year if you're
Yeah,
already done with it, because 2021 is still like, we're still talking about history.
it was
A lot
it
would
was
have
a long
changed
time ago.
after COVID. Yeah. So, moving ahead, like I really wanted to touch base on the broader categories of the finances that we wanted to talk about, the bigger chunk, where it, in terms of like, we know moving to California is a big decision in terms of versus an East Coast state, where we know like California is a little expensive on those ends. And then with the tuition fees, and you can talk more about the scholarship and how were all those together helped you in certain ways that you mentioned, that as international students you had conversations with the college advisor, and how can one bring down the amount to a lesser level per semester so that it could help them in the longer run.
Yeah, of course. I think it's a very, very important part uh, of, like I mentioned this earlier, a very important part of deciding where you want to go is how much you want to pay and how much you actually have to pay eventually. So obviously I spoke to people, and based on what I knew that it is going to be expensive to not just study in California, but also live in California. So this is a very important part of like where you want to study. Look at the state, look at how much your expenses are. I know I had friends in Florida who were paying like one third of the rent that I was every single month. So it's definitely more expensive here. But if I talk about the overall expenses, I would sort of divide them into two separate buckets. The first is like your personal expenses, which covers your rent. Your rent is a huge part of it. Your rent, and then your groceries, and your extra all the other things that you want to spend on. You might want to go on trips and you want to travel back home. So all of that is like your personal expenses. The second category is, of course, your tuition fees, which is the bigger part. It forms a huge chunk of how much money you will be shelling out for your degree. And I guess like I'm probably going to talk about that a little more. So you first have the first level that you have is your college fees. Your tuition fees is like the biggest part that you pay. Um, Now there are multiple different ways in which you can offset the tuition fees. The first one that I probably mentioned before was scholarship. So scholarship ranges somewhere, I've seen it go from like 20% or like 100% scholarship too at universities. And I would say that that is the biggest factor. Like you should focus on your scholarship because that will really, really help bring down your tuition fee. Um, And in this, the key to doing this is when you receive acceptances, if you receive acceptances from multiple universities, most of them end up giving you scholarship amounts, because I have never heard of international students not getting a scholarship amount, even whether it's a small amount. So I would say most of it, probably not all, but most universities give international students some kind of scholarship. So now when you have multiple offers, use these different offers that you have and leverage them to negotiate a better scholarship with the university of your choice. And that is key. And I think it's so underrated that at back then, I had done that a little bit, but I think there's a lot more scope to negotiate, and a lot more people should be doing this. So definitely use that to negotiate for a higher scholarship amount. It really helps bring down your tuition fee. So once you've cleared the scholarship part, the second part that was more applicable to me, not necessary in all universities, is a teaching assistant or a research assistant position. So that means that you're probably helping a professor run classes, you're grading homeworks, you're checking attendance in classes. That was what was a part of teaching assistant for us at UC Irvine. So the way it works at UCs, we have a quarter system, not a semester system. So every quarter, if you're a teaching assistant, depending upon how many hours you have decided to allocate to your teaching assistantship, there's an hourly rate that you get paid. So you get paid a monthly stipend based on how many hours you've decided to put in. And that really helps offset your rent and your personal expenses and all of that. The other part of it is UCs also are known to be pretty generous with the amount that they pay you for teaching assistantship. So they give you a tuition remission. So every quarter, there's a certain amount that you will get off of your tuition fees, which again really helps off bring down whatever cost that you're actually paying for your tuition. So they pay to you in like these two separate parts, and I think UCs are very generous with the way they do it. Now, having said that, whether you get it at your university and how much your university pays is very subjective. It depends from university to university. I think also depends on the degrees and the courses that you're doing. So I would say when you're talking to university, when you have your acceptance letter or you're negotiating a scholarship amount, definitely bring this up and ask them, what are the opportunities that I have to be a teaching assistant, and how much would I get paid? How would that help offset my costs? I think that is something that you should really keep in mind. Most of these positions are not guaranteed by the university, so don't consider that as a given that this is going to take some part of your tuition fees. But yes, you should. I think something that you should definitely work towards if you have the opportunity. It really helps bring down your costs. And the last part is a lot of other on-campus jobs. So TAs and RAs are also on-campus jobs, but there are other on-campus jobs in case you don't really get the opportunity to do a TA. I've had friends who worked at libraries and computer centers and Starbucks and Subway on campus. So that really also helps you earn some kind of money that you can put towards your personal expenses and your rent, or paying off your loan or whatever, however you want to use it. So there are these different ways, but I would say 100% talk to your university about this. Let them know if you require a scholarship amount, negotiate your scholarship amounts, and talk to them about like what are the different ways as an international student that I can really offset my costs. For me personally, TAs were very, very helpful in bringing down my tuition fees, but like also with a monthly stipend, it was a great amount of money to like pay for my rent and pay for like some part of the personal expenses as well. So it really, really helped me throughout this, like financially throughout the whole degree.
I agree to that point because, like for my university as well, there was a set amount that was set aside that we'll be giving it to all the international students, irrespective of whatever merit
Yeah.
base they are. But apart from that, I thought like let's just ask like if there's anything more, and they were like, if you want to still go for TA, RA, or being like a graduate assistant, you can go ahead with that, and we'll have like a set amount for that as well, apart from what you get from
Oh, yeah,
the
that's
scholarship
great.
as
Yeah.
well. So that's up to you. You have to put in your application to the professor, and all
Yeah.
those things that goes into interviews and understanding. So I did that for one entire year, and that really brought down my tuition fees to a level that I was happy that okay, at least I am searching for a job, but at least I have lesser fees to pay as well per semester, considering the amount and expenses I have as well in terms of staying and
Yeah.
eating and what all other things are there as well, because there come certain expenses in my curriculum that I had to pay for certain lab courses and other things which were
Oh,
not
okay.
included in the tuition, but you have to give it out of your pocket. So that was really irritating, but yeah, you have to go ahead with that. So be prepared for like random expenses as well that can crop up anytime, and a lot of other things like you know, getting your things set up at home, and then getting those weekly
Yeah, yeah.
groceries, and uh, even getting a phone plan and paying for it. A lot will come into picture, so we have to be like prepared for the buffer as well, like we have that amount to pay for all these things. So yeah, I did like couple of conversations with the college advisor on this, and I became like on the shameless side that I need
100%. I think
to
everyone should. I
yeah,
think
you should.
we think too much and are like, I don't know if this is something I should talk about. I honestly did not even know. I remember talking to them about this. I wouldn't say that. I spoke to them very briefly about this and I was like, how can I get those opportunities? So at UC, either you have professor relationships or they assign you a TA, but it goes through a bunch of different people before it actually comes to you. I had my first TA offer when I was in my first quarter, and I didn't take it up because I was looking for an internship. I was still settling in, and I was like, this is already so overwhelming, and the academics were unknown. Like there were courses, we had courses on finance and accounting in the first quarter, and things I had never worked on before. So I was very busy with all of that, and I was like, I don't know if I wanted to do it now. I eventually started it, I think, in the second or the third quarter, and I was also like, I don't know, will I be able to like manage the load of this TA with my job search and my academics? Will I be able to do it? And eventually, when I did it, I was like, it's pretty manageable. Like, I could have done this earlier too.
Yeah, in the starting, it was really difficult for me to manage that 20 hours, like being an RA. But so in my first semester, I was a TA. So I was like basically working on the assignment grading
Yeah.
and making papers and all those things. And then with that semester coming to an end, I realized that I can request and be on the RA side, because with TA, it comes with a lot of responsibilities to grade
Yeah.
and then to justify yourself in front of the students that why were you graded like this. So I was like, I have to get out of this space. And it's better I work more on the research bit with my professor that she's working on. And that's when the next 2 semesters, like my spring and summer, I was more on the RA side. So I was still managing the work very nicely as compared to being a TA. But
So
I've seen,
it sounds like you enjoyed the RA part more than
yeah,
the.
like
Yeah.
the TA came with an added responsibilities of a lot of justification to
Yeah.
tons and tons of students. And I was not happy or, okay with that, uh, setup. So I was like, no, I'll probably move to the RA side. And I was like, good, I'm happy now here.
I don't think we did RAs. I don't even know if we had RAs, but we were all TAs.
Mhm.
Uh, so starting from my second or third quarter, I think I was a TA till the end, and then I was like, I should have done this earlier. This was pretty manageable. I don't regret not doing it in the first quarter because I feel like there's a lot in the first quarter. You're still getting adjusted, and it's a little overwhelming with like setting things up and going through all of that stuff. But I was like, yeah, after that, like it was manageable. And for us, there were like different options. So you could opt into like a specific bracket of like, do you want to do, say, for example, 10 hours? Do you want to do 20 hours? Or do you want to do 35 hours? So based on that, you get paid. But that also helps you like allocate your time. Like if you feel like you don't have enough time, you could do like the lesser one, get a lesser stipend every month. But at least it definitely still helps with your
Yeah.
expenses. And then once people had their jobs, they were like doing the highest. I think it was like 37, it was called 37.5% or something. So people were doing that and getting paid like decently well to offset their personal costs.
Nice, nice. Because for us, it was mandatory to do 20 hours and it was only the option we had. So we can't go beyond 20 hours because that would go against that
Yeah.
structure that they had formed. But yeah, I can still say like different departments had different payouts for the international students. So my department was paying fine, but if I see the other departments, they were paying really, really well. So,
Mm.
but there were also certain rules like where you cannot jump off from one department to another. You have to have like permissions. If there is a space in the current department, why move to a different one? So all those rules and regulations were there. So it was different for different departments. But yeah, at the end of the day, it really helped us. with a lot of things, with that amount
Yeah.
coming in, and then that scholarship amount deducting a highest, level of the tuition fees and bringing it down to a good level.
Yeah.
So um, for me, like, the scholarship amount came directly in the offer letter. Like, this is what you get,
Hmm.
that's it. Upon that, if you want to go for anything else, like, there were a lot of things that happens in the college, and you can earn scholarships through that. uh Eventually lower down your tuition fees for the next semesters, but yeah, basically,
Yeah.
yeah, those things helps you when you ask questions, because if you don't ask, they'll just keep those programs up to themselves and not give it out. So it's better to ask questions, what we
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving ahead, like we talked about a whole chunk of these categories, I just wanted to understand, like, were there any specific preparations? I know you were already there in product management, but were there any specific preparations that you did, or you think one should do before coming for this particular degree program when they're coming in for their intake?
Um, for me, from a career perspective, there wasn't a lot. I was very familiar with product because I had spent some time in it. I do remember that before we officially started our classes, this is all from an academic perspective, but before we started our classes, we were given the option, like our first quarter had finance and accounting, and they kind of knew that there are people who don't come with that background. So they had given us some kind of prep courses that you could go through, like some basic courses on finance and accounting if you want to, and that was optional. I know people who did it, I know people who didn't do it. I personally did it because I was like, I don't know what to expect in finance, and it was helpful to me, to be honest. Um, so there was some stuff that was recommended by the university. Outside of that, there was nothing much. I think um, a lot of you just bring a lot of your experience that you have, whether it's 4 years or 6 years or 10 years of work experience, you just bring all of that. And your MBA or your advanced degree just adds on top of it. So from an academic perspective, I think that was all that they had given us to prep. And I don't think I had not prepared for anything else outside of that. But for the other preparations, one, I think we spoke about scholarships. So definitely research more about scholarships. Read up scholarships on your website, on your college website. There will be a list of scholarships and a bunch of different ones. I had applied for the merit-based scholarship, but I'm sure there are a bunch of different ones. And if you're eligible, then you should definitely apply for those. So research those. Um, the other thing I would say is also look up housing options as soon as you've decided where you want to join. UC had very limited housing options. In the first year, we didn't get on-campus housing, so we lived off campus. In my second year, they had built these completely brand new apartment homes. So we got really good apartments we were eligible for, which was great. It was a brand new apartment. I had a great apartment, a great roommate I lived with. But housing options are usually limited. They're most likely they're affordable, but they're usually limited given the number of incoming students every single year. So make sure you research housing options well, put in your application. I think, yes, you have to put in an application for the housing, to the housing department, and reach out to them if you have questions or if you're looking for housing. But it gets filled up really fast, and there's also priority given to. I think sometimes it's given to PhDs, it's given to people who come with families. So if you want to really stay on top of it, make sure you get in your application quickly. Um, and the third thing I would say is not a prep before, but throughout, but be very mindful of your entire visa process. Make sure you're even before you come or like while you're in the right status. If you're moving in and out of statuses, if you're changing your addresses, make sure you are always informing your international center of the university, no matter what, because they're the people who will help you through this process throughout. But be very mindful of your visa process. Make sure you have all your documents in place. You are in the right status. You're not getting like notices from USCIS informing you of something. And if they do, like just make sure you're on top of it. But I guess this is for like throughout your stay in the US. But that's something I would say. These are probably the only things that you should. There's also I guess there are immunization requests by the university. I just remember that now, but yeah, definitely remember that.
They are
Do those things
big
right.
time ones, and I know that I thought, like, I can skip couple of them, but then later I was suggested by a lot of folks, like considering the alumni group and then the doctors and
Yeah.
everything, that, you know, being an international student, you're traveling, so probably get everything because you don't know what are you getting exposed to in a new country. Like,
Yeah.
not saying that you would be, but at least you are still immunized. And those things are really, really important. Like, I would stress that fact, and thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I just remember that now. I think some of them are also required by the university. So for us, we had a list that was sent by our university, and you're like, this is mandatory. And if you don't, you have enough time, but I think it was still sometime in September or October. But like, if you don't get it, they could also drop you off the course. You get notices. I have a friend who's that had happened with her. She had forgotten to get a certain immunization, and then she got a notice saying like, hey, if you don't get it done by this day, you could be dropped off the course. So make sure you get all of that done before you
My
come.
university was generous in some ways, saying that if you did not get it, we'll give you here, and then you have to pay like a huge chunk of money, because obviously it's not the same amount what you see it back in your own country compared to when the university gives you that shot. So they were
Yeah,
okay that come up if something is missing, we'll give you that. But before that, like obviously there was a bar there that if you don't get this shot from us, you'll not be able to sit for the classes yet.
yeah.
Like
It
you
was the
have
same.
to
Yeah.
get it. Yeah. So
Like
that
mid of first quarter, they were like, if you don't get it, like people were getting notices like you will be like, if you don't get it in the next 1 week, you'll be dropped off classes. I got one of them in the US. I don't remember which one, but there was one that I got, but that was luckily covered under the insurance. But everything else, I got it done in India. So like make sure you get that done and
yeah.
don't skip that part. That's super important.
So I guess that is one thing that I wanted to like stress on as well, that, you know, since you're on visa, and that's, I guess, our next question as well, talk about the visa experience. But, you know, you'll always have a chunk of document, which would range from your status to your address to your bank accounts to immunization and a lot of other things, and related to health insurance as well. So keep like make sure you're all mentally prepared to handle all of them in terms of a soft copy, hard copy, because they could be asked anytime. Because I was all green through all my immunization records, but middle of the fall semester I was asked as like a non-compliant person for a couple of, you know, immunization, and I had to represent the documents again, and I was then all green. So but you know, that just gives you a heart attack, like a mini heart attack. Oh my god, did I not do it? Like, what can they do? Can they send me back because I don't have those records and everything? So it's just be always on the green side, never on
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
yellow or red side at all, never. So you mentioned about the visa experience, obviously. So that's like just the elephant of the room. And let's just talk more about it. And I know just after COVID, the experience would have been really tricky, different, difficult, uncomfortable in getting slots and a lot of other things, and a lot of, sorry, and a lot of travel mandates as well. So, how was your experience in terms of once you got the offer letter, and you know, how was that experience for you for the visa?
It was now that I think about it, it was a little crazy because so we were the first batch that had started applying for visas after COVID because we were the 21 batch and the 2020 batch never came. So for the 21 batch, the US embassy in all the US embassies in India were shut for a really, really long time. So they had just started opening up, I guess somewhere around so around May, June. And now they had a huge backlog, and the requests were crazy, whether it was for tourist visas, it was for B1, B2, or it was for student visas. And so when we started looking for visa appointments, we saw nothing. Obviously, it was like nothing, and people started panicking. And the same question, everyone's like, "Will I really make it in time for the orientation? Will I make it in time for my first class?" And sure, honestly, if you are not able to do it, these are like natural situations. It's completely fine because universities understand that they're very, very understanding of this. But we were all like, we really want to make it for the orientation. What is going to happen? Will we ever get a slot? And a lot of these questions came up, and the US Embassy constantly kept saying that have patience, we're going to open up slots. Do not apply for priority visas because people started doing that. And I've also heard people who were applying for priority visas who students were also getting rejected because the embassy was constantly like, we don't want you to be applying for priority visas, like apply for regular visas. And we will 100% open up slots. So we just had to keep waiting And each and every person in my batch eventually got a slot, like, and much well advanced and before time. So no one had that case where we had to like miss the orientation. We were like well in time. We came like a week before or like 2 weeks before. So eventually they did open up slots and everyone got their slots in there. Um, but it was a lot of like monitoring and constantly looking at it. And there were a lot of travel restrictions back then. So you had to be vaccinated. So and it was crazy because that was also the time when vaccines were coming out in India and not everyone was able to get it quickly. I still remember. So my cohort, like we were all talking together, like all the Indians, we used to do these virtual calls and talk about how is our process going, what are we doing, did someone get an appointment, we just talk about updates. And I remember we'd always be like, did you guys get like a vaccine slot? Because I've not been able to get one. Like we would always talk about it. So we had to be vaccinated, we had to be masked, we had to be tested, like all of that stuff was going on. We were masked for the whole quarter, the first quarter that I was here, but everything was in person. The second quarter was another wave of COVID. So we went for a month virtual and we were like, my whole class was, I don't know how to do this virtual. Like, this is so crazy. Luckily, it was only like, I think it was very brief. But then the rest of the program was in person, thankfully. So that was a little crazy. But I would say there's one really good point that you pointed out, which was make sure for the visa appointment and after, you always have your documents. There's a list of documents the embassy requires you to carry for the visa appointment, which is your passport, your I-20, your proof of finance, your admission letter, proof of your finance, stuff like that. Make sure you have documents. I had a bunch of different documents when I took to the embassy, and I took them during my travel as well, because
I
it's also
remember, sorry to cut you there. I remember I even
Mhm.
had my tax documents as well, though as if they'll ask me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
like I was that.
I had my payslip and my tax, and like I
Like,
had all of that.
like I was like, I have money, I've paid back to the government as well. See, like, let me go. So it was that kind of a situation.
Yeah, I was like, and I think everyone does that because people are very nervous for visa interviews. And I had all of that with me. I took that. I took my COVID vaccine proof, like not for the appointment, but like when I was traveling. So when I was traveling, I literally had even like segmented my documents into like different stuff. Make sure, this is very important, make sure you carry these documents with you in your handbag when you're traveling, because there is a smaller possibility, but you could be, when you're going through immigration, when you land in the US, you could be questioned. um and they could just ask you basic questions like how, like I was asked a bunch of questions at immigration, which is like, where do you plan on staying, an do you have proof of your finances, how are you going to pay for your degree, how um what is your how do you have your admission letter, are you vaccinated, and stuff like that. So I literally had all those documents. So always carry them in your hand, don't put them in your check-in bag, please just carry those copies in your handbag.
I know I had like good like 2.5 kgs of documents all together, all physical copies, and it was all in my carry-on. And then later I regretted like nobody asked anything for it. Why did I put it? But I was like, and it's still there. It's
I
still
still have those,
still
yeah.
consists with all my bachelor's degrees, like the original ones with its migration provisional certificates and tons of other things, like even the CA documents, everything that I got it done during the visa, everything stands there as is. So that's the funny
Most
part.
likely during your interview process, they don't even ask you for it. But it's always
Nothing.
like, if they do, I don't want to be in a situation where I don't have those
Exactly.
documents.
So,
I want to be prepared.
I was so ready that when he asked me the finance question during the visa experience, I was like, I'll just open it and give him the document. But at that time, he was all good, sorted by, we'll get you the passport, weeks later. And then I was like, then why did I carry this heavy document folder?
Yeah.
Like nobody asks for it, neither on the visa interview nor at the immigrations, and it's all still there. But I would
I
say
was asked at immigration, but the visa interview I wasn't. And I think it's very common because when I was sitting in line for the visa interview, I could see everyone around me had like you can tell people who've come for student visa appointments, and they all had like a big folder. They all had documents. They all had like well rehearsed answers and stuff like that. So, which is the other thing I would say, like you'll probably find like a list of visa interview questions. Just make sure you know what the appropriate response is before you go in. And the questions are usually like, how would you fund it? Why are you going there? How long are you planning to go stay there? Are you planning to come back? like stuff like that. But just make sure you know all the appropriate responses and you're like prepared for an interview. It is always a nervous experience. I don't know why the US visa interview process is always a nervous
I
experience.
know, yeah. And
It's honestly not even that bad.
it's always different for everyone. Like there are people who have been asked, like, even show me your house documents. But
Wow.
people like us, they've never been asked. Like even I've had friends have been asked about their social media platforms.
Oh my God.
So
Really?
it could be anything, but yeah, like you cannot expect any sort of questions that they may not be your question.
Yeah.
Anything could come up. You have to be prepped for everything. So I don't know, but yeah, it's different for everyone. People are grilled at times, but people are like easily given out things. So it's different. But be ready with your documentations. That
All of my friends, I remember all of so my batch when all of us went for the visa interview process. As far as I remember, we all had like three basic questions that we were asked, like, how are you going to fund your education? When do you plan on coming back? And that's it. And we were like, that's it. Like, because we were all so super prepared. We're like, oh, that's it. Yeah, but like, I guess it definitely differs from like people to
I
people.
went off as if I was going on for a debate competition, that I'll put my pointers in front of you that see this. But it was that quick, like in 12 seconds, I was out on the road.
Yeah,
Like I ran off the moment the visa officer said that, I'm just approving your visa and you'll get your passport in the same
yeah,
address that you chose off. And I just ran off like if he answers or, ask me to wait for any other question, I was like, I'll just run away. I'm done. Bye. And just done, yeah. Because I was that running on clock because of a lot of other things. But yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, in a nutshell, like keep all your documentations all good already because till date we do refer to all of them. And as your
Okay.
statuses changes from F1 to any other one, you would need all of those documentations to put a proof
Yeah.
there that what were your status there. So Ridhima, I know we've talked a lot about things before you came here to the States, like a lot of other things of how you chose the degree program, the college, the preparations, the visa experience. And we just want to like quickly touch upon the point, like when you landed here in LA and, how were the initial couple of weeks for you? Like, how was the transition period in terms of coming from India to US and how were things for the initial couple of weeks?
I think honestly, it's definitely an overwhelming experience. So when I came to the US, I've traveled to different countries, lived across different countries, but this was the first time I came to the US and I didn't have a lot of family here. So I came here. It's definitely exciting. But beyond the point, it starts getting a little overwhelming with things like what bank account should I open up? What SIM card should I get? Um, why is one bank account better than the other? Or like what kind of things should I do? Where should I go for groceries? I remember we used to talk about things like how do we pick up furniture from someone else's house? Because like that's always a question. It's like, how do I do this? Because I don't have a car. I
I
don't.
had this question that why are they giving such a nice furniture to us? Like, is there a catch there? And I've also had those free furnitures at my student apartment, and that was like a big question to me. That side of culture exposure was like really overwhelming for me. Like somebody giving such beautiful furniture for free or for like really
Yeah.
minimal cost. So yeah, I love that part and
We were
still
like, how
do.
do we even bring that? Like, how do we get a couch
Yeah.
home? Like, how do we bring that? So stuff like that. Like, it was nice. I think as a group, like all of us really came around the same time. So we like try to manage these things. Some people had friends here, some people had family, so people were asking people around, and we were trying to figure things out. So it sometimes does get a little overwhelming when you're like, this is all confusing. I don't know how to figure it out. You've left your entire well settled life back in India and you've come here to a place where you're starting from scratch. Um, some people have some kind of family here, some people don't. But your core family, I guess, is most likely back in India. So you've left that emotional support back in India. And so sometimes it gets a little like I don't know what is going on here. It gets a little crazy. The biggest part I still think till today is for the first 2 years, I didn't I've after driving in India for like over 10 years. I came here and I was like, I don't have a car for like 2 years. And in California, in Southern California, getting around without a car is very, very difficult. So basically, you have to just Uber, rely on your friends and stuff like that. But I guess like the key to all of that is just ask people for help. Ask your classmates, ask alumni, ask people you're close to, your friends, your family. Because at the end of the day, these are the people who also become your family here. Um, I've had great classmates. I made incredible friends. And a lot of times we got through these things together. They're super helpful, very, very nice. So like we would like they would really, really like be like, okay, I'll help you. Like we get it that you're in the situation and we're more than happy to help you. So I would say don't hesitate, just reach out to people. People want to help. You just need to ask them you know, if you need help.
I
But
agree.
it's
I agree
it's a
to that
little
point.
crazy for sure.
Yeah, it is crazy, but yeah, you make a second family here, with all those friends and friends of friends, and then I've had like those Walmart or other rides with my
Yeah.
friends. Obviously they are there with their families there, and they can take you if they go to the store, and all those
Yeah,
things are
that's like
totally
super helpful. It's
yeah.
really helpful, and now that I look back, it's not a big deal. Like if I have a friend who doesn't have a car, I'm like, sure, I'm going to get groceries. I can pick you up and drop you. And that back then, I'm like, oh, that's great help. I remember my friend was like, "You've never been to Costco?" And I was like, "No, what is Costco?" She's like, "I have to take you to Costco." We literally just went to Costco just because she wanted to show me what Costco is.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, this is nice." So she's like, "Everyone should know what Costco is. Everyone should go to Costco." And I was like, "Okay."
No, like I used to live with a working roommate apart from one of a student roommate as well. So she used to take us to Costco and all other places, and she used to drive us there. And I was so like felt so good. Oh my God. Like, we have a car in our own apartment, we can
Oh
go
my God.
anywhere. So that was a huge help in the initial days. And eventually when you get the hold of it, like, okay, this ride would help you take up there, or this train ride would help you there. So, you understand things eventually, but still those things really help you, like to quickly grab those things.
200%. Yeah, yeah.
And, with her being in the apartment, helped me to understand, okay, this place is good for this things, this place is good for these things. And right now, after 2 years, I know, okay, I have to head to this store for these products,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
place for these products, and I'm pretty clear for it. Then, back then, I was like, everything looks so good, so fancy, so nice, and this and that. So we eventually understood those things as well when people helped us around. So it's good to like take help and understand things here and not be overwhelmed alone. Be overwhelmed
Yeah,
in a group.
100%. People will always like eventually we figured out there were bus routes that could take us to the supermarket, or we would like go together, and like people would like flatmates would probably Uber and then Uber back and forth. But I guess it's just about the whole initial experience. But like
Yeah,
ask people for help. Like literally people like, I'm going to get groceries, I can take you along. It's not a big deal for them. They're happy to help. So just feel free to ask for help. People will
I
always.
yeah, and those are like good times when you make good relationships,
Oh,
and
100%. Yeah.
all of those things. And yeah, find your like when I went for the very first time to the Indian grocery, I was shattered to deaths, like to see all the costs and the prices and everything. And then since I was in a group, we were able to tackle it all together. That
Yeah.
okay, this is it. We have to understand where we are standing, and
Yeah.
have to like digest that fact. And now it's become
The
like,
whole rupee to dollar conversion,
oh my
you
God,
honestly, the biggest advice I have is like the quicker you can drop that conversion, the easier your life is.
I
Like,
did that eventually for the smaller things, like
hmm.
the things which I need every day. I don't have to think every day. Like it's really
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
trash than if I'm thinking every day that okay, the tomatoes are this expensive, this, that, this, that. But yeah, for bigger things, yes, it was there, but eventually it decreased once got into a job, started earning, and been into a settled space. Not yet, but still way better to what we were as students,
Yeah.
in 2021, or for me, it was 2022. So obviously you grow by levels in, expanding
Yeah, yeah.
yourself and all those things. So that's there. But yeah, great experience back then for all of those things. And
Very nostalgic thinking about all those things.
yeah, yeah. That was fun. Like, really, really great to explore different grocery stores. But Coming to the point here, thanks for sharing that, Ridhima. But we want to like quickly touch base upon. I know we're both like graduates at that time when the job market wasn't that fruitful, or I would say it was not that good. What we've heard for the previous years, that the job market is really good, really opportunistic, and you get a lot of opportunities. But how was with your degree program? And how was the job market with you being in California? What were the things that you observed? Was it good? Was it fine? Was it not that good? And how was it for you?
So I started looking for my internship I came here in 2021, July, August 21, and I started looking for my internship, um, I think somewhere around October, November, around that period. Uh, when my batch was looking for our internships, the market was still in a decent state. So I interned with Zillow, which is the real estate software platform. Interviewed with a couple of companies. So I interned with Zillow as a product manager intern. But a lot of my classmates had offers from really good companies. Uh, like it was SAP, we did Mattel, we did Adobe, that we had Splunk, we had Datadog, and a lot of these companies are not recruited from UC Irvine before. So it was a great time for like us as interns. People were landing really, really good offers. Um, Somewhere halfway through the internship is I guess when we sort of realized that the market is kind of shaky, it's not that good, and it doesn't look like it's going to go in a good direction now. And so around the end of our internships, most of us found out that we were not getting offers. So I was pretty disappointed. I think on my last day of the internship, they told us that, hey, we're having budget cuts, we don't have headcount, we're not getting people back. Um, so we're not giving out offers to interns. And that happened with most of my classmates, especially the ones who were in tech. I think the other industries were relatively lesser affected compared to tech. Um, in tech, most of them did not end up getting return offers. Um, for me, the good part was that I found out that I'm not getting an offer, compared to a few other people where they were told, like, hey, we're waiting to see if we'll get headcount. If we get headcount, would love to have you back. So it just dragged on the entire process because people were optimistic and waiting for their companies to get back. I don't think those companies ever got back to them with the headcount, but uh, there was a huge waste of time in between. So I see that as a blessing that I was told in the last day of my internship that, hey, you're not getting. And I was honestly really sad. Like, of course I would be. I spent like a day being extremely sad about it. And I was like, I really did well, and I thought I did well, and I thought I would get a return offer and all of that. But honestly, after 24 hours, I was like, okay, I'm done being sad about the situation. That is gone. What can I do now? What can I do to fix the situation now? And the next day onwards, I started looking at job applications. I started talking to people. I started networking. I started the whole job search process like literally the next day itself. And that's why I see it as a blessing because I did not have that time to waste. And I'm like, I need to get to this the next day itself. Um, so a couple of things I think that is one thing that really helped. But a couple of other things were I reached out to people I knew already. So I reached out to alumni, I reached out to all those connections that I made when I was doing my internship search process, which was great because I already had that connection in place. And there were also some people who had interviewed me during my internship process. So I was talking to those people and they remembered me from the interview. They were like, oh, yeah, we interviewed you. It was a great interview. I mean, these were the offers that I didn't take up. So they were like, oh, we interviewed you and we're like happy to put in a good word for you. So, like, all those previous connections were super helpful. I started making new connections. And then the other thing that really helped was I kind of decided that when I see a job application, sorry, a job position open up, I'm going to get my application in the first thing that I can. Whether it's the application, it's my resume, or it's the cover letter. I think a lot of times we overthink this and we try to over engineer and perfect our resume and bring it to a point where it's really good. But by that time, you have like 1,000 people who've already put in their applications. And companies cannot process over 1,000 applications. You're going to look at the first 100, they get their candidate and they're like, great, we don't have the time to go through 1,000, 2,000 applications. So that's one thing I really learned. Like, put in your resume. You can continue working on your resume. You can continue working on your cover letters and all of that eventually. But when you see a position, make sure you get it in. Um, and the third thing that I did was I used up a lot of that time till I had a job interview to prepare for the job interview. So I knew I was interested in product and strategy. So I was working on product case questions, strategy case questions, behavioral interviews, using a lot of the time to practice with the career center, with my friends, with my classmates, doing a lot of practice by myself, making sure I had enough stories, I was following the star format and all of that stuff, but just being very well prepared because I wanted to be in a position that if I get a job interview, I would be well prepared for it. And that's kind of what happened with my current job, with Experian. When I got the job interview, I was already pretty well prepared, takes off a huge part of your stress, and you're a lot more confident during the interview. So I used that time extensively. But having said that, it's really hard. Like the job market is really bad. I've had great friends and classmates, and it's taken them a lot of time. Um, some people get it soon, some people get it 6 months, some people get it 9 months later. The key is to just have that confidence in yourself, like have that confidence and that faith that if you keep, and it is really strong. It's very, very hard, but like you have to be at it. That if I have the, I you have to have that faith that something good is lined up for you. If not now, you will get it eventually. And I
I
know it's really hard. It's like easier said than done, but it is literally what will keep you going the entire
I
time.
agree. I agree. And I followed the same for myself as well. Like I got it pretty late in my batch, a job, and it was very late. Like it was way past my conferral date when I started up with my job. And it was such a experience where it feels right now really psychological, or we're talking about something which somehow we know it, but the consistency really matters.
Yeah.
And you don't have to leave anything. You can take breaks of applying to jobs. Like, okay, you have to have your physical breaks as well, like where you're taking a day or 2 day off, where you're just off. That's I've done that as well. Like I've taken a day or two off,
Yeah.
and where I'm not at all checking job roles. I was like, let it be. Like
This
I
gets a bit much also.
yeah, it took me like months, and I really had to get off that drain part, and I was losing a lot of health and everything. But that's what kept me going. Like those breaks helped me to be
Yeah.
consistent once I'm back on the third day and applying again and doing a lot of things in the tough market zone. And it's also the point where you are interviewing with a lot of organizations, you're going good, but then there are like 7 or 8 interviews that are lined up, and you have to give all of them, and you don't have that much time and stuff like that, but still keep on going and keep it a mixture of both the organizations that I also kept, like small organization, bigger
Oh
organization,
yeah,
so
100%.
that you can at least start your job with a smaller one if it's quicker in giving you the process, and then waiting for other organizations as well. So that would be a good mixture. But the consistency part, like I am like banging it on that it's 100% true and worked for me. And it took me like 7 to 8 months to get hold of this current job, but the consistency was the only factor
I think that's a
helping
great point. And also, yeah, keep your options open.
me.
I think the mistake that a lot of people make initially, especially as international students, it's relatively harder because your options, you don't have as many options to apply because there are only a limited set of companies that will sponsor you for your visa and you want to work for those companies. So there are not really, like, you don't really apply to as much market as is visible out there. But I think we often make the mistake of always looking at a brand name or like, how can I work for the bigger company? And that's where a lot of times you lose out on a lot of opportunities that are actually great, like especially for internships, I would say. It's like startups, and you get so much learning in startups and like smaller companies because you're working hands-on, you're doing multiple roles at the same time. It's a lot of fun, but I think it's very important to like keep from day one, be like, I'm going to apply to whatever I think is suitable, but not restrict myself to like just a big brand name or just a big company. Like I very strongly believe in like
I
keep
agree.
all of the options open. Like
But I've
eventually
seen
because it
like
could get like really stressful.
yeah, but I've seen like people like really stringent upon like I want to go into this dream company I
Yeah.
had always thought about, and now they're on a hiring freeze. So you're all shattered. You have no plan. So you always have to have like a backup plan. Like
Yeah.
that dream company, apply it, but apply to 10 other organizations seeing the current situation as well, because
Oh,
it's hard.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Especially with this job market, yeah, you have to be like extra cautious. extra vigilant
Really
so that you hold.
extra
So,
cautious, and you have to have that thing that makes you stand out, because that particular role is been applied by tens and thousands of other people as well, who may have the same capabilities like you. So you have to stand out somewhere where you're different and put it out there. So
yeah,
that's how you can work on yourself, and that's something that's getting like really hard and hard with the current job scenario as well. To what I've seen back in 2022 and now what I see in 2024, oh my God, there's like a really bad situation. And I always just thank God that things happened for me last year, or else I would have been sitting back in India and would have gone back, because I had nothing else on plate apart from, a lot of interviews going on, and then still waiting for offer letters. And then there was the same reasoning that, there's budget count, like budget
yeah,
cuts, or, not sponsoring,
yeah,
the international student. And that's one thing that we compulsorily want, that somebody has to sponsor us, like either our work visa or maybe have us on OPT to work on OPT.
yeah.
So that's a mandate for us. But yeah, um,
I'm glad it worked out for you.
yeah, and I'm glad things worked out for you as well. With with the job market, it was really difficult to get hold of things, but I'm happy. I know we're at the last segment where I wanted to quickly ask you. Uh, you've had given a lot of advices through all the questions through the past 1 hour, but anything that you wanted to say to the incoming students as like an advice or a suggestion or any recommendation that you want to put out, you've seen in the latest time, and you want to have them know more about it. So anything from you.
I think we pretty much covered like almost everything, like from the job market or like moving here and the visa process. I think we've pretty much covered all of it. There's one thing that someone this was actually given to me before I joined. Um, and that really struck a chord with me, and I still hold this with myself today. So he told me that know your why, like know why you're coming here to the US to do get a degree. Now this why could be different for people. Like for people, they want to grow in their career, they want to do a career shift. Some people come here for their partners, some people are like, we just want to explore the US, and so this is like a good way for us to get an advanced degree and be here in a different country. Whatever it is, know your why, and know your why very strongly, because the process throughout, not just as an international student, just as a student in general, you're leaving the workforce that you've been working for. You don't have an income, like you're going to be off income for 2 years. Everyone's away from their family for some point at some point. So it could get a little stressful. You're juggling a lot of things as a job search process and all of that as a student in general. And there will be a lot of times where you will question yourself and you're like, what am I really doing here? Was it worth leaving the job that I had? I had a great job. Was it worth doing all of that? So a lot of times you will question yourself. And this why is what will really help answer all those questions, and will it'll make you feel like, okay, no, I belong here and there's a reason that I came here. So just have that why with you. And that will really help you go get through like most of the stuff through grad school. And honestly, just have fun. Like you're here to like explore this new country, this new culture. I have zero regrets about anything that I have done in the last 3 years, or like even coming here, getting my degree. And I think there's always every day there's something new to do, something new to learn, have fun, new experience. So just have fun throughout the process. You'll make great friends. I've made incredible friends through the program outside of college, through the 3 years that I've been here. But 100% just have fun. Like have fun through the process. Don't make it a lot more stressful than it actually is. So
Yeah, I know it's a stressful process. It is not saying a no there, but obviously you have to, live through it, enjoy it. What are the different sets of things? Because it's totally different from where we are coming from, as earning people, having their undergrad done back in a different country, moving to a new education system, new
yeah.
professional life system, and grabbing this current job so difficult, in a very difficult time, in a very difficult way, and we're just living our lives. That's something that we're sticking on to. But I know, all through the hour there were great advices given up. as part of different questions. And I think so everyone made sure to listen to it. But I would again say thank you so much, Ridhima, for giving out time and sharing a lot of these things that would really help a lot of people who watch through this video. And obviously, we'll have your um, social media handles listed down below. So anyone, if we did not cover any such questions, please go ahead and spam her as much as you can, and she'd be happy to help you there. But this was really a great hour to talk to you and talk a lot about your experience at UC Irvine, and we'll stay connected. So thank you so much
Yeah,
again.
I am happy to answer any questions in case I couldn't. Um, I think this was a great chat. Thank you so much, Saman. Thank you for having me here. A great conversation. I think nostalgic at a lot of points.
Yes.
A lot of questions really made us go back and think in time. But I've had a great chat. I really hope this is helpful for people who are coming here. Um, and yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much and have a great weekend ahead.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.